That frigid night, a car breakdown thrust a notorious crime boss into an unexpected encounter. A mechanic rescued him without a hint of recognition regarding his identity or profession. Yet, upon glimpsing her name, his past materialized, sharp and undeniable. She had meticulously rebuilt her life from the ruins he had forged, and now, imperceptibly, he teetered on the brink of shattering it once more. Lorenzo Vitali dismissed the concept of misfortune. In his meticulously controlled world, every event had a purpose, typically orchestrated by his own hand. However, tonight, as steam billowed from beneath the hood of his Mercedes on a desolate stretch of road, 60 meters outside Chicago, he found himself re-evaluating that conviction. "Pathetic German engineering," he grumbled, slamming the hood shut. The metal seared his palm, despite the biting December chill. He retrieved his phone. No signal. A predictable frustration. The wind pierced his wool overcoat with the sharpness of a blade. On either side, empty cornfields stretched endlessly into the inky blackness. Behind him, the city lights cast a faint, ethereal orange glow on the horizon. Ahead lay only an impenetrable void. He had sent Marco and the others home early tonight, a rare indulgence in solitude, a desire for contemplation. Now he was paying the price. Lorenzo began to walk. His Italian leather shoes were ill-suited for the gravel roads of rural Illinois, yet he had endured far worse. 20 minutes later, his fingers were numb and his temper seethed. Then he spotted it, a flickering light, approximately a quarter-mile ahead. As he neared, a weathered sign gradually came into focus. Carter's Auto Repair, its neon lettering half extinguished. The garage was diminutive, barely accommodating 2 vehicles, its paint peeling, rust creeping up the metal siding. A lone bulb, swaying in the wind, illuminated the entrance. This was not the sort of establishment Lorenzo Vitali typically frequented. He pushed open the door. The immediate wave of warmth from a corner space heater was a divine comfort. An aroma followed, motor oil, coffee, and a distinct, sweet scent. Cinnamon, perhaps. Then he saw her. A woman lay partially beneath an antique Ford pickup truck, only her legs and steel-toed work boots, caked in grime, visible. She hummed an unfamiliar country tune. "We're closed," she announced, without emerging from under the vehicle. "My car stalled about a mile back," Lorenzo stated. "I require assistance." "Don't we all?" she retorted. The creeper rolled out, and she sat up, wiping her hands on a rag that had clearly seen better days. She was younger than he anticipated, perhaps 35, with dark hair pulled back into a messy ponytail and a streak of grease across her cheekbone. Her eyes were a piercing, sharp green, the kind that seemed to bore directly into one's soul. She stood, and Lorenzo realized she was tall, possibly 5 feet 9 or 10 inches. She met his gaze unflinchingly, devoid of the flicker of recognition he was accustomed to seeing in people's eyes. "Flat tire or blown engine?" she asked, cutting straight to the chase. No trivial chit-chat. Lorenzo found it surprisingly refreshing. Steam emanating from the hood, temperature gauge in the red, coolant leak, could be worse, likely. She retrieved a heavy jacket from a hook. "Do you have the funds for a tow?" "Money is not an issue." She surveyed him, the tailored coat, the expensive watch, the shoes that likely cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her expression remained impassive. "Never is for your type." She pulled on the jacket. "Come on, let's assess the damage you've inflicted." They proceeded to her tow truck, an ancient Chevy that chugged to life with a sound reminiscent of emphysema. The cab reeked of stale coffee and an indefinable scent vanilla, perhaps. A child's drawing, a stick figure family, a woman, a smaller person, and a dog was taped to the dashboard. "Do you have children?" he inquired. "One son," she replied, keeping her eyes fixed on the dark road. "He's 7. "Why do you ask?" "Just making conversation." "Don't." She downshifted as they approached his Mercedes, the tow truck's headlights illuminating the disabled luxury vehicle as if it were a crime scene. "I'm not in the mood." "Fair enough." Lorenzo remained silent as she worked, skillfully attaching the chains with practiced efficiency. She moved with the confidence of someone who had performed this task 1,000 times, someone who required no assistance, supervision, or advice. Upon returning to the garage, she positioned the Mercedes inside and popped the hood. Lorenzo watched her lean over the engine, her flashlight tracing over components with surgical precision. "Busted radiator hose," she declared after a minute. "And your thermostat is shot. You're fortunate it didn't seize the entire engine. How long will it take to repair? I can patch the hose tonight, get you running, but you require a complete replacement. I don't stock parts for vehicles of this caliber. They'll have to be ordered from Chicago. 2 days, perhaps 3. I need it tonight." She straightened up and stared at him, as if he had just announced the sky was green. "I too require a vacation in Hawaii. We both need to temper our expectations." Despite himself, Lorenzo almost smiled. When was the last time someone had spoken to him in such a manner? "I'll pay double. You'll pay my standard rate, and you'll receive it when it's ready." She retrieved a water bottle from a mini fridge in the corner and took a long drink. "Do you want the patch job or not?" He observed her, the stubborn set of her jaw, the grease beneath her fingernails, the name tag on her coveralls that he had only just noticed. Carter. The name struck him like a punch to the gut. Carter. No, it couldn't be. It was a common name. It had to be. "Is something amiss?" she asked, catching his gaze. "No." He forced his voice to remain level. "The patch is acceptable." She nodded and returned to the engine. "It should take me about 40 minutes. There's coffee over there if you want it. It's terrible, but it's hot." Lorenzo walked to the corner, where an ancient coffee maker sat on a metal shelf. His hands trembled slightly as he poured a cup. He kept his back to her, struggling to control his breathing. Carter, Daniel Carter, the warehouse, the fire, 8 years ago. No, 9 now. He turned slowly, watching her work, the confidence and self-sufficiency in her movements. The radio on the workbench played softly, a talk show he wasn't listening to. "Does your husband assist you in running this place?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. Her hands paused for a fleeting second. Then she resumed her work. "I'm a widow," she stated flatly. "It's just me now." The coffee tasted like ash in his mouth. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You didn't know him." She pulled the ruptured hose free, examining it under the light. "He worked nights in the city. Wrong place, wrong time. There was a fire, a warehouse fire. They said he didn't make it out." Lorenzo put down the coffee cup before he dropped it. 9 years ago. March, the Southside warehouse. He had issued the order himself. Make it look like an accident. He had told his associates, no weaknesses. There had been a night watchman, collateral damage, acceptable losses, Daniel Carter. The name had appeared in the police report. Lorenzo remembered signing off on the cover-up, ensuring the fire inspectors attributed the blaze to faulty wiring instead of arson. He had buried it, forgotten it, and now he stood in the deceased man's garage, watching his widow repair the car of the man who had killed him. "Are you all right?" Sophia Carter inquired, glancing at him. "You look as though you've seen a ghost." Lorenzo Vitali, who had condemned a dozen men to their deaths without a flicker, who had built an empire on violence and fear, found himself speechless. "Yeah," he finally managed, "just cold, still warming up." She nodded and resumed her work, utterly oblivious that she was mending the car of her husband's murderer. And Lorenzo stood there in the fluorescent light, trapped in an inescapable moment, watching the ghost of his sins work with grease-stained hands. Sophia worked in silence for the next 20 minutes, her movements efficient and precise. Lorenzo feigned drinking the awful coffee, but mostly he observed her, attempting to reconcile the woman before him with the name in that ancient file, Daniel Carter's widow, the night watchman who had seen too much. "How long ago?" Lorenzo asked, despising himself for pressing, yet unable to quell the urge. 9 years this March." She didn't look up from the engine. "Why?" "It's just a long time to manage this place alone." "You become accustomed to it," she said, tightening a clamp, testing it. "You become accustomed to many things." The heater rattled in the corner. Outside, the wind intensified, causing the metal building to creak. "He was a good man," Sophia suddenly stated, surprising him. "Daniel worked hard, never complained. We were going to purchase a house that spring," she laughed bitterly. "Had the down payment saved and everything." Lorenzo's chest tightened. What happened to it? The money, funeral costs, medical bills from when they tried to save him. The insurance company contested the claim for 2 years, said the warehouse had code violations, tried to blame the contractor. She shook her head. By the time they paid out, there was barely anything left, definitely not enough for a house. Because Lorenzo's lawyers had entangled the claim, ensuring the victims' families received as little as possible. Standard procedure, minimized liability. He had signed those papers too. "Do you have any other family?" he inquired. "Just Eli, my son." She stepped back from the engine, wiping her forehead with the back of her hand. "And my brother, but he's in Arizona. We don't communicate much." Alone. She was utterly alone, raising a child in this decaying garage in the middle of nowhere. "Why here?" Lorenzo gestured at the building. "Why not relocate to the city? More business." This was Daniel's dream. He grew up here, wanted to open a shop. After he died, she trailed off, grabbing a new hose from a shelf. "I don't know. It felt like surrender if I left, like he died for nothing. He died because Lorenzo Vitali needed a witness eliminated. He died because he had been in the wrong warehouse at the wrong time, seen the wrong faces moving the wrong merchandise." "Your son," Lorenzo said, desperately seeking to change the subject, to stop hearing about Daniel Carter's dreams. "Does he assist you here?" Sophia's face softened for the first time. "Eli, he's 7. He hands me tools sometimes, thinks he's a true mechanic. Mostly he just gets in the way, but," she smiled, "he's a good kid, smart. Their teachers believe he could secure scholarships one day if he stays in quality schools. Have you considered relocating for his education?" "Every day that thought crosses my mind." She began installing a new hose. "But city rents are exorbitant. At least here, I own the building. It's not grand, but it's ours." Lorenzo observed her meticulous work, this woman who had lost everything because of him, constructing a life through sheer grit and willpower. She sought no sympathy, voiced no complaints, only stated facts. This experience made him feel more diminutive than any threat or weapon ever had. 45 minutes after their arrival, Sophia straightened up, closing the hood. "That should get you back to Chicago," she stated, wiping her hands. "But seriously, get that thermostat replaced. You're operating on borrowed time. How much do I owe you?" "Towing and repairs, 200. Lorenzo retrieved his wallet, counting out 500 in cash. "Keep it." Her gaze fixed on the money, then hardened as it met his. "The fee is 200. Consider the rest a tip for coming out so late." "I don't accept tips." She counted out 200, extended it, then pushed the remaining bills back into his hand. "I fix things. I don't accept pity." "It's not pity." "Yes, it is." She crossed her arms. A rich man breaks down, sees a struggling widow, and wants to feel virtuous. I've encountered this before. Keep your guilt money. The word guilt struck him sharply. "It's not like that," he stammered, his voice lacking conviction. "Of course it is. That's what men like you do. You hurl money at problems, at people, believing it solves everything." She walked to the door, opening it to a rush of cold air. "Your car is repaired. You can leave." Lorenzo stood motionless, the rejected money still clutched in his hand, feeling a powerlessness he hadn't experienced in 2 decades. In his world, money rectified all issues. It purchased loyalty, silence, salvation. But Sophia Carter wasn't for sale. He moved toward the door, stopping beside her. Up close, he discerned the exhaustion etched in her eyes, the worry lines carved into her face. She was likely beautiful when she genuinely smiled. He would never know. "Thank you," he murmured, "for fixing the car." "That's what I do." She avoided his gaze. "Drive safely." Lorenzo walked to his Mercedes, started it. The engine purred to life, now smooth as silk. Through the windshield, he saw Sophia in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself against the cold, watching him depart. He put the car in reverse, then paused, reaching into the glove compartment for a business card. Not his official one. He kept a supply of anonymous cards, just a phone number, no name. He got out, walking back. "If you ever need anything," he offered, extending it. "Car trouble, whatever." Sophia regarded the card as if it might bite her. "I don't need charity. Not charity, just in case." She took it, barely glancing, before tucking it into her pocket. "Good night, Mr. Vitali, Lorenzo, Vitali." A flicker crossed her eyes. Had the name registered? No, she was simply tired. "Good night, Mr. Vitali." He drove away slowly, tracking her in the rearview mirror until the garage became a mere speck of light in the darkness. A mile down the road, he pulled over, gripped the steering wheel, and exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Daniel Carter's widow had just rescued him, showing him more kindness in an hour than he deserved in a lifetime, utterly unaware that she had been face to face with the man who had shattered her existence. Lorenzo Vitali, who had never apologized for anything, who never glanced back at the wreckage he left behind, sat alone in the dark and felt something he hadn't in decades: shame. Lorenzo's penthouse commanded a view of Lake Michigan, 43 floors of steel and glass that usually made him feel invincible. Tonight, it felt like a cage. He poured 3 fingers of 30-year-old Macallan, a scotch he didn't taste. The city spread out below him, millions of lights, millions of lives he'd typically never consider twice. Yet tonight, he couldn't stop thinking about one: Sophia Carter. Green eyes, grease-stained hands, and an unyielding pride. He should dismiss it. He had committed acts far worse than ordering a hit on a warehouse watchman. The man had seen faces, license plates, heard names. It was business clean, necessary, except it wasn't clean at all. Lorenzo set down the glass and walked to his study. The room was dark wood and leather, opulent and chilling. Behind a concealed panel in the bookshelf lay his personal safe, not for cash or weapons, but for the meticulous records he kept on everything and everyone: insurance, leverage, truth. He entered the code, pulling out a stack of files from 2016. It took him 20 minutes to locate it, a slim, unremarkable folder. The label read, Southside Warehouse Incident, March 2016. Lorenzo opened it on his desk, spreading the contents under the lamplight. Police reports, fire marshal findings, witness statements, or absence thereof, photographs of the charred building blackened steel beams, melted concrete, and there, in the corner of one photo, a body bag being loaded into a coroner's van. Daniel Carter, age 31, night shift security guard, survived by wife Sophia Carter, age 26, and son Elijah Carter, age 6 months. 6 months old, Eli had been an infant when Lorenzo had orphaned him. He continued reading. The fire marshal's report concluded, accidental fire due to faulty electrical wiring. But tucked behind it was another document, the real one, never submitted to official files. It was typed on plain paper, no letterhead, just facts. Target: Warehouse 7, Southside Industrial Park. Objective: eliminate evidence of March 12th shipment. Method: accelerant-based fire, electrical source staging, complications, 1 civilian casualty, security guard, Daniel Carter. Cleanup: CPFD bribed, fire marshal report altered, insurance claims delayed and contested, status: closed. At the bottom, in his own handwriting from 9 years ago, approved, LV. His initials, his signature, his order. Lorenzo had signed death warrants before, plenty of them. Rivals, traitors, threats, men who understood the risks of their chosen path. But Daniel Carter hadn't been in the life. He was a working man striving to provide for his family, showing up for a night shift at a warehouse that coincidentally stored Lorenzo's illegal shipment. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong life to lose. And Lorenzo had sanctioned it with 2 letters. He examined the attached documentation, Sophia's insurance claim, the 2-year legal battle, the settlement offer $30,000 for a husband and father, a sum Lorenzo spent on watches. His lawyers had fought her, prolonged the process, making her suffer twice, first for losing Daniel, and again for attempting to claim what she was owed. Lorenzo felt his jaw clenching. The empire he had built, the respect he commanded, the power he wielded it suddenly appeared different, not an empire at all, more like a graveyard with his name etched on every headstone. He grabbed his phone, dialing Marco. Boss? His underboss sounded alert despite the late hour. Marco rarely slept much. I need you to do something quietly. Name it. There's an auto shop about 60 miles west, Carter's Auto Repair. I want eyes on it, just surveillance, nothing heavy. Someone watching the place, ensuring no trouble. A pause. Is this related to business? It's related to me saying, do it. Understood. How long? Until I say otherwise. Lorenzo rubbed his eyes. "And Marco, the woman who runs it, Sophia Carter. If anyone, and I mean anyone, gives her problems, I want to know immediately." "Protection detail?" Marco sounded confused. Lorenzo didn't blame him. They didn't protect civilians. They weren't heroes. "Something like that." "Boss, do you want to tell me what this is about?" Lorenzo gazed at the files scattered across his desk, at Daniel Carter's widow, photographed at the funeral, hollow-eyed and cradling a baby. "I'm settling an old debt," he stated. "That's all you need to know." He hung up before Marco could ask further questions. For the next hour, Lorenzo remained in his study, reading and rereading the file. Every detail felt like a knife. Daniel had been working double shifts to save for a house. He had been attending night classes at a community college, studying electrical engineering. He had wanted to give his family more. Instead, he had given them only grief. Lorenzo thought of Sophia tonight, rejecting his money. "I fix things. I don't take pity." She had rebuilt her life from ashes, literally, and she had done it without assistance, without handouts, completely unaware that the man responsible walked free, grew richer, slept in penthouses while she froze in a garage. His phone buzzed, a text from Marco. "Team in place by morning. What are we looking for?" Lorenzo typed back, "Anything that doesn't belong." He closed the file, but he didn't put it away. Instead, he left it on his desk, open to the funeral photo. A reminder, a punishment. In his world, Lorenzo was accustomed to being feared, obeyed, respected, or at least the appearance of it. No one questioned his orders. No one challenged his authority. But tonight, a widow in a dilapidated garage had looked at him and seen right through the expensive suit, the cash, and the power. She had seen a man trying to buy his way out of something, and she had sent him away. For the first time in his life, Lorenzo Vitali felt exactly what he was. A man built on bones, commanding an empire of rot, attempting to mend the unfixable with blood-soaked money. He poured another scotch, stood at the window, and watched the city that bowed to him. It no longer felt like a victory. It felt like a graveyard. 3 days later, Marco called at 2 a.m. "Boss, we have a situation at the garage." Lorenzo was instantly awake, already reaching for his pants. "What kind of situation?" 3 guys, baseball bats, spray paint. They trashed the place pretty good before my team moved in." "Sophia, is she hurt?" "She wasn't there." The boss, Marco, hesitated, even though it was after hours. The walls had been defaced with spray paint, bearing serpent symbols. Lorenzo's blood ran cold. Those serpents were the calling card of Viktor Kozlov's crew, the Russian mob from Gary. For months, they had been encroaching on his territory, probing for weaknesses, pushing boundaries. They knew the garage was connected to him, having likely observed his men guarding the place, and swiftly pieced the puzzle together. Marco's voice was strained. "What do you want me to do?" Lorenzo's reply was immediate. "I'm on my way. Keep your team there. Nobody leaves." Lorenzo drove at 90 miles an hour, his Mercedes devouring the dark highway. His thoughts raced. The serpents were sending a stark message. We know what you protect, and we can touch it. Yet, they were oblivious to why he was protecting Sophia's garage. They couldn't possibly know. They merely saw an opportunity to inflict pain. He arrived at Carter's auto repair just before 3 a.m. 3 black SUVs were parked outside, and Marco's men had formed a tight perimeter. The garage bay door was open, spilling fluorescent light onto the pavement, revealing a scene of utter destruction. Every tool chest had been upended, tools scattered and twisted. The space heater was obliterated. The coffee maker, the one that brewed such dreadful coffee, lay shattered against the wall. Across every surface, crude serpent symbols were emblazoned in red paint. But it was the message on the far wall, 6 feet high, that made Lorenzo's hands tremble. "Vitali's. Get this cleaned up," Lorenzo said quietly. "Now, before she sees it." "Boss, she's on her way," Marco responded, checking his phone. "Our team called her when it happened. Protocol, owner needs to know. Then work faster." They had a mere 20 minutes before headlights cut through the darkness, and Sophia's pickup truck skidded to a halt outside. She leaped out, still in pajama pants and an old sweatshirt, her hair a wild mess. "What the hell happened?" she demanded, pushing past Marco's men. "Who are you people?" Then she saw the interior of her garage and froze. Lorenzo watched the color drain from her face as she surveyed the devastation, the broken tools, the violated space her late husband had so painstakingly dreamed of. "No," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "No, no, no." She walked inside slowly, as if moving through a nightmare, picking up a bent wrench, the very one she had used on his car. Her hands trembled violently. "Who did this?" Her voice was small, shattered. Then she noticed the armed men, Marco, 6 feet 4 inches tall and scarred, standing like a sentinel, and Lorenzo emerging from the shadows in his expensive coat and shoes. Her grief instantly transmuted into fury. "You!" she accused, pointing at Lorenzo. "You brought this here, Sophia. Don't!" She gripped the bent wrench like a weapon. "Who are you? Who the hell are you really?" Lorenzo held up his hands. "I'm just a businessman. Businessmen don't have armed guards. Businessmen don't—" She gestured wildly at the spray paint, the wreckage. "What is this? What did you do?" "I didn't do anything. I'm trying to protect you." "Protect me?" She laughed, a wild, bitter sound. "From what? From who? This place has been fine for 9 years, and then you show up, and 3 days later—" Her voice cracked. "This is my life. This is all I have left of Daniel, and you—" She hurled the wrench at him. Lorenzo didn't flinch. It clanged off the wall behind him. "Get out!" Sophia demanded. "Get out of my shop. Not until we clean this up. I said, get out!" Marco stepped forward, but Lorenzo waved him off. He moved closer to Sophia, slowly, cautiously, like approaching a wounded animal. "I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But those men, the ones who did this, they're dangerous. They might come back." "Why would they come back? What do they want with me?" "They don't want anything with you. They want to hurt me." Sophia stared at him, and Lorenzo watched as the pieces clicked together in her mind, the expensive car, the guards, the late-night visit, the cash he had tried to offer her. "You're a criminal," she stated flatly. Lorenzo didn't answer. He couldn't lie anymore. "Oh my God," Sophia gasped, wrapping her arms around herself. "I let you in here. I fixed your car. I told you about Daniel, about Eli." She looked ill. "Is my son in danger?" "No. I swear to you, I will never let anything happen to your son." "How can you promise that? You can't even tell me the truth." "The truth is complicated. Try me." Lorenzo truly looked at her then. This woman who had lost everything and rebuilt her life with her bare hands. She deserved honesty, even if it destroyed him. But he couldn't. Not yet. Not like this. "I'm a businessman with connections," he began carefully. "Some of those connections aren't legal. I made some people angry, and they're trying to get to me through people I care about. You don't even know me. I know enough." Sophia slowly shook her head. "You need to leave. You and your men and your connections. Just leave me alone." "I can't do that." "Why not?" "Because if I leave, they'll come back. And next time, you might be here." The fight seemed to drain out of her. She looked around at her destroyed garage, at the life she'd fought so hard to build, shattered again. "I can't afford this," she said quietly. "The tools, the repairs. Insurance won't cover vandalism. Not out here." Lorenzo pulled out his phone, sending a quick text to Marco. "Replace everything. Triple quality. Have it done by morning." "It'll be handled," he said. "I don't want your money." "It's not charity. It's my fault they targeted you, so I'm fixing it." Sophia looked at him for a long moment, those sharp green eyes seeing too much, understanding more than he wanted her to. "Who are you, really?" "Lorenzo Vitali. Someone trying to do the right thing for once," he said, "even if I'm doing it badly." She didn't believe him. He could see it in her face. But she was exhausted, overwhelmed, standing amidst the ruins of her life. "Fine," she said finally. "Fix it. But then stay away from me and my son. Whatever war you're fighting, we're not part of it." Lorenzo nodded, though he knew it was a promise he couldn't keep. The war had already begun, and Sophia Carter, whether she realized it or not, was standing right in the middle of it. Sophia arrived at her garage the next morning, bracing for the worst. Instead, she found something impossible. The place was pristine, not merely cleaned, but utterly transformed. Every trace of spray paint was gone, the walls freshly painted a clean white. The shattered space heater had been replaced by an industrial-grade heating system. New LED lights hung from the ceiling, bright and efficient. And where her destroyed tools had been, there were 3 professional-grade tool chests, top of the line, filled with equipment she'd only ever seen in catalogs. She stood in the doorway, coffee in hand, struggling to process the scene. A note sat on the workbench, written in neat handwriting. A debt repaid, LV. Sophia crumpled it in her fist. By noon, she had called every tool supplier within 50 miles, attempting to return everything. None would speak to her. Already paid for, ma'am. No returns on custom orders. Custom orders. He had arranged all of this overnight. She was standing in the garage, furious and on the verge of tears, when Lorenzo's Mercedes pulled up. He stepped out slowly, cautiously, like approaching a bomb. "You can't do this," Sophia said before he even reached the door. "It's already done." "Then undo it. I don't want any of this." Lorenzo looked at her, then at the new tools, at the garage that finally looked like a professional operation instead of a struggling dream. "Why not?" he asked quietly. "Because I don't want to owe you anything." Her voice cracked. "I've built everything once already. After Daniel died, everyone wanted to help. His family, our friends, the church. Everyone had opinions about what I should do, where I should go, how I should grieve." She grabbed a wrench from the new tool chest, holding it up. "You know what I did? I learned to fix cars, taught myself from YouTube videos and library books because I couldn't afford the tools I needed. I worked 3 jobs until I could afford to keep this place running. I replaced every broken thing in my life with my own 2 hands." She set the wrench down hard. "So, yeah, I can do it again. I don't need your guilt money or your expensive tools or whatever this is." Lorenzo watched her, this woman who had been knocked down by life and refused to stay defeated, who had lost her husband in a warehouse fire due to him, and still built something from nothing. "It's not guilt money," he said. "Then what is it?" "Respect." The word escaped before he could stop it. "You're the only person in my life who doesn't want anything from me, who looks at what I offer and says no. That's rare." Sophia studied him. "What do you want, Lorenzo? Really?" What did he want? Forgiveness? He didn't deserve absolution for killing her husband, to somehow fix a past that was broken beyond repair. "I want you to keep the tools," he said at last. "Not because you owe me, because your son deserves a mother who doesn't have to work herself to death, because good work deserves good equipment, because—" He paused. "Because it's the least I can do." "For what?" "Everything. For ruining your life, for making your son grow up without a father, for every night you've cried yourself to sleep and every bill you've struggled to pay and every dream that died in that warehouse fire. For the inconvenience," he added, "for bringing trouble to your door." Sophia slowly shook her head. "You're a complicated man, Lorenzo Vitali. You have no idea." She walked to the new heating system, feeling the warmth pouring from it. Outside, the December wind rattled the building, but inside it was almost comfortable. She had frozen through 3 winters in this garage, too stubborn to close early, too proud to ask for help. "I should still say no," she said quietly. But I'm tired." She turned to face him. "I'm so tired of fighting for every single thing, and maybe just this once, I can accept help. Not because I need it, but because I'm allowed to." Lorenzo felt something shift in his chest relief, perhaps, or something more dangerous, hope. "The heating system alone," Sophia continued. "That will save me a fortune on space heaters," she mused, her gaze drifting to a socket set whose price likely exceeded her truck's value. "With these tools, I could actually tackle larger projects, commercial work, perhaps even hire help." "You should," Lorenzo affirmed. "You excel at what you do." "How would you know? You've only seen me work once," she challenged. "Once was sufficient," he replied. They stood enveloped in silence amidst the trappings his wealth had provided, yet complicated by his very presence. Sophia scrutinized him, as if piecing together a broken puzzle. "Your men," she began. "Are they still watching the place?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I uphold my promises. I said I'd protect you." "I didn't ask you to." "I know," Lorenzo acknowledged, moving towards the door. "But I'm doing it anyway. You won't see them." They'll maintain their distance, but if anyone causes trouble, they'll... What? Shoot them? The unspoken question hung heavy in the air. Lorenzo's silence was his answer. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself. I don't know if I feel safer or more afraid. Feel whatever you need to feel, he responded. Just understand you're protected from everyone except me. The words struck her with more force than the wrench she'd hurled at him the previous night. Yeah, Lorenzo whispered. Everyone except me. He departed before she could press for clarification, before she could perceive the truth in his eyes, before he could confide that the true danger had manifested 9 years prior, and no number of tools, heating systems, or layers of protection could ever mend it. As he drove back to the city, Lorenzo glanced in his rearview mirror at the garage receding behind him. Inside, Sophia Carter was likely caressing those new tools, striving to convince herself she'd made the right decision by accepting them. She hadn't. Nothing about this situation felt right. Yet, Lorenzo continued driving, perpetuating the pretense that money could rectify the devastation wrought by murder, persistently deceiving himself into believing he was making things better, when in reality he was merely digging himself deeper into a grave of his own making. The first snow of December arrived 2 weeks later, bringing with it renewed trouble. Lorenzo was mid-meeting with his captains when Marco pulled him aside, his face grim. We have eyes on Kozlov's crew again, 2 cars circling the mechanic shop. They didn't stop, but they're watching. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Increase the detail. I want a minimum of 4 men. Boss, that means pulling guys off the south docks. We have a shipment coming in. I don't care. Do it. The men are starting to talk. Let them talk. They're saying you're distracted, that you're losing focus over some woman. Lorenzo turned, his voice like ice. And what are you saying, Marco? Marco met his gaze. I'm saying I've known you for 15 years, and I've never seen you like this. You're reshuffling operations, relocating resources, all for a civilian who doesn't even know who you truly are. He paused. So, yeah, I'm asking, what's going on? I'm protecting an asset. An asset? Marco laughed sardonically. She runs a garage in the middle of nowhere. She's not moving product. She's not laundering money. She's nothing to us, Lorenzo, except a target now because you made her one. The raw truth of it stung. Lorenzo had painted a bullseye on Sophia's back the moment he'd shown interest. Every gang in Chicago with a vendetta now understood that harming her would wound him. This is not open for debate, Lorenzo stated quietly. Keep her safe. That's an order. Marco shook his head, but remained silent. He left, and Lorenzo could hear him muttering to the other captains in the hallway, their voices questioning, doubting. His empire was built on fear and respect, but both were beginning to fracture. 2 nights later, Sophia called the number he had given her. Lorenzo answered on the first ring. Someone was at Eli's school today, she said without preamble. Her voice was taut, controlled, but he could detect the tremor of fear beneath it. A man, not a parent. The teacher said he was asking questions about my son, about our schedule. Lorenzo was already grabbing his coat. Where are you now? Home. I pulled Eli out early. Lorenzo, I'm scared. What if... Give me your address. She did. A small house 10 minutes from the garage. Lorenzo drove there in 7, Marco following in a second car. The house was tiny but meticulously maintained. Christmas lights hung askew in the window, likely put up by a 7-year-old. Sophia opened the door before he could knock, a baseball bat clutched in her hand. That's not going to help, Lorenzo said gently. It's all I have, she replied, letting him in. The interior was warm, imbued with life. Children's drawings adorned the fridge, toys lay in the corner, and a half-decorated Christmas tree with a homemade star topped it off. It was everything Lorenzo's penthouse wasn't, lived in, loved, real. A small boy peered around the kitchen corner, dark hair like his mother's, wide brown eyes. Daniel Carter's eyes. Lorenzo felt as though he'd been punched in the chest. Eli, go to your room, Sophia instructed. But Mom... Now, baby, please. The boy disappeared down the hall. Sophia turned to Lorenzo, the bat still gripped firmly. What did you bring to my door? She demanded. And don't lie to me this time, not when my son is involved. Lorenzo looked at her. This woman who had survived losing everything, who had painstakingly rebuilt her life from ashes and sheer will. She deserved the truth. Yet, The truth would annihilate what little trust existed between them. "I have enemies," he said cautiously. "Dangerous people. They know I've been helping you. They're trying to send me a message by threatening a child. They'll threaten anything to get to me." Sophia's knuckles were white on the bat. "Then stop helping me if that's what it takes." "It's too late for that. They already know. Backing off now won't make you safer. It'll make you more vulnerable." "So, what do I do?" she countered. "Live in fear? Keep my son out of school? Watch over my shoulder forever? You let me handle it." "How?" "You don't want to know how." They stared at each other across the small living room. Outside, snow fell soft and silent. Marco's men were already establishing a perimeter. Sophia's quiet life was rapidly transforming into a fortress. "I never asked for this," she whispered. "I know. All I wanted was to fix cars and raise my son and maybe," her voice trembled, "maybe someday stop feeling like I'm drowning." Lorenzo yearned to tell her it would be all right, to promise her safety, peace, normalcy. But he had learned long ago that promises were merely beautiful lies. "I'll keep you safe," he said instead. "Both of you, whatever it takes." "Why?" She finally lowered the bat. "Why does this matter so much to you? You don't know us." "Because I killed your husband. Because I destroyed your life. Because your son grew up without a father because of me. Because every good thing you built on the ruins I created. Because you deserve better than this," Lorenzo said. It wasn't a complete answer, but it was all he could offer. Sophia looked at him for a long moment, then gestured toward the kitchen. "There's coffee. It's terrible, but it's hot." Despite everything, Lorenzo almost smiled. "I remember." That night, Lorenzo sat in his car outside Sophia's house, watching the lights. Marco climbed into the passenger seat, brushing snow from his coat. "The men are positioned. We'll do rotating shifts. Keep it subtle." "Good." "Boss, this has to end sometime. We can't protect her forever." "Why not?" "Because it's not sustainable. Because Kozlov is going to keep pushing. Because—" Marco paused. "Because sooner or later, she's going to ask questions you can't answer." Lorenzo watched Sophia's shadow move past the kitchen window. Eli appeared, laughing at something she said. A normal moment, a happy moment. The kind Lorenzo had stolen from them 9 years ago. "Then I'll deal with that when it comes," he stated. "And if she finds out who you really are, she won't. You can't hide this forever." Lorenzo turned to Marco, his oldest friend, his most loyal soldier. "Watch me." But even as he said it, he knew Marco was right. The truth carried weight, gravity. Eventually, it would pull everything down. He just hoped he could hold it up a little longer. Lorenzo began visiting the garage more frequently. Not to have his car fixed, the Mercedes ran perfectly, but to check in, to ensure Sophia's safety, to oversee the perimeter his men had established. That's what he told himself anyway. The truth was far more complex. The garage had become the sole place where the weight of his empire didn't suffocate him, where someone regarded him simply as a man, not a monster to be feared or exploited. It was during one of these visits, on a Saturday afternoon in mid-December, that he truly spoke with Eli for the first time. The boy was in the garage, perched on a stool too large for him, swinging his legs and observing his mother work on an old Honda. He had been sneaking glances at Lorenzo for the past 20 minutes, curious and cautious. "You're the quiet man," Eli declared suddenly. Lorenzo looked up from the corner, where he'd been pretending to check his phone. "What?" "That's what Mom calls you, the quiet man who visits sometimes." The child possessed his mother's forthrightness, those sharp eyes that perceive too much. "Are you her boyfriend?" Sophia's mortified voice emanated from under the hood. "I'm just a friend," Lorenzo said, suppressing a smile. "Mom doesn't have friends. She says she doesn't have time for friends." "Eli, I swear to God," Sophia protested. "It's fine," Lorenzo interjected. He moved closer, crouching to the boy's eye level. "Your mom's right. She's very busy. But sometimes busy people need friends too." Eli pondered this. "Do you know about cars?" "A little." "Do you know about engines?" Lorenzo reflected on his teenage years, before the violence and the empire, his uncle's garage in Brooklyn, learning to rebuild carburetors and transmissions because it was honest work before he discovered that dishonest work paid better. "Yeah," he said, "I know about engines." "Can you teach me?" Eli's eyes lit up. Mom tries, but she's always working, and she gets mad when I ask too many questions. I do not get mad, Sophia protested, emerging from the Honda with grease smudged on her cheek. I just need to concentrate, please, Eli pleaded, his wide brown eyes, so reminiscent of Daniel's, fixed on Lorenzo. A refusal should have been automatic, a maintained distance his only option. Every moment with this family felt like a deepening layer of deceit. Yet, he heard his own voice respond, "All right, what's on your mind?" Eli bounded off the stool, declaring, "Everything!" For the next hour, Lorenzo found himself engaging in an activity he hadn't touched in 3 decades, teaching. He explained the internal combustion engine's workings to Eli, using simple terms and expressive gestures, detailing pistons, cylinders, timing belts, and spark plugs. The boy, a veritable sponge, absorbed every detail, peppering Lorenzo with insightful questions and drawing connections that surprised him. "So, the gas explodes?" Eli asked, his eyes wide with a controlled fascination. "That's what makes the car go, cool." Peering into the Honda's engine bay, he added, "Can I see the spark plugs?" Lorenzo glanced at Sophia, whose expression was unreadable as she watched them. She gave a subtle nod. He effortlessly lifted Eli, who felt as light as air, all elbows and boundless energy, to inspect the spark plugs, explaining how they generated the ignition spark for the fuel. Eli listened as if Lorenzo were unveiling the very secrets of the cosmos. "My dad worked with engines," Eli stated suddenly, his voice hushed. "Mom says he was really good at it." A knot tightened in Lorenzo's chest. "I'm sure he was," he replied. "I don't remember him much. I was really little." The boy gently touched an engine component. "But Mom says I'm like him, says I have his brain." "Then you're gonna be brilliant," Lorenzo said, genuinely meaning it. Sophia cleared her throat. "Eli, why don't you go grab the socket set from the office? The new 1-inch. "Okay." The boy dashed off, a whirlwind of 7-year-old energy. Lorenzo carefully set him down, watching him vanish into the back office. When he turned back, Sophia was scrutinizing him. "You're good with him," she observed. "I really doubt it." "You are. He doesn't warm up to people easily." She wiped her hands on a rag. "He lost his dad so young. He's very careful about men. But you," she shook her head, "he likes you." The words pierced him like daggers. This boy, this fatherless child, found warmth in the man who had orchestrated his father's absence. "He's a good kid," Lorenzo managed. "Yeah, he is." Sophia's expression softened. "He deserves more than this place, more than me, always working, always stressed. He deserves—" She trailed off. "He deserves a normal life. He has a mother who loves him. That's more than a lot of kids get. Is it enough, though?" She looked directly at Lorenzo, truly seeing him. "Do you have kids?" "No." "Ever wanted them?" The question caught him off guard. Had he, once perhaps, before the bloodshed and the bodies, before he became someone children should flee from, not run toward? "I wouldn't have been a good father," he confessed. "Why not?" "Because of who I am, what I do. Kids deserve better." Sophia's head tilted. "But you're good with Eli." "That's different." "How?" "Because Eli isn't mine to ruin. Because I already ruined his life once. Because teaching him about engines for an hour doesn't make up for taking his father. It just is," Lorenzo concluded. Eli came barreling back with the socket set, and the profound moment dissipated. For the next 20 minutes, Lorenzo guided the boy in removing a spark plug, interpreting carbon buildup, and setting the gap correctly. Eli's small hands worked with meticulous care, his tongue poking out in concentration. When he successfully reinserted the plug, his grin was pure sunshine. "I did it!" "You did," Lorenzo affirmed. "Natural talent. Just like Dad, right, Mom?" Sophia's smile was tinged with sorrow. "Just like Dad, baby." Later, as Lorenzo prepared to leave, Eli intercepted him in the parking lot. "Mr. Vitali, you can call me Lorenzo." "Lorenzo." Eli tested the name. "Will you come back to teach me more stuff?" Lorenzo looked down at this guileless boy, utterly unaware he was forging a bond with his father's killer. He should have said no. He should have walked away and never looked back. Instead, he heard himself say, Yeah, I'll come back. Eli's smile was incandescent enough to power the entire city. As Lorenzo drove away, he caught a glimpse of himself in the rearview mirror. For that brief interlude, sitting with the boy, teaching him about engines and witnessing his joy, Lorenzo had felt like an ordinary person, someone who could create instead of merely destroy, like a father. The sensation had now vanished, replaced by the familiar weight of his true identity. But, for that fleeting moment, he had felt human, and it terrified him. Because humans felt guilt. Humans felt shame. Humans couldn't live with what he had done. Monsters could. He was just no longer certain which one he was. 3 weeks before Christmas, Lorenzo found himself back at the garage at midnight. His route from a meeting on the south side, the kind where disagreements were resolved with more than mere words, took him past Carter's auto repair. The lights were still on. He should have continued driving, letting Marco's team handle the surveillance. But he pulled in regardless, rationalizing it as a routine check. Sophia was beneath a Chevy Suburban, the creeper halfway out, her legs visible in oil-stained jeans. Classical music played softly on the radio, an unexpected detail. The space heater he had purchased hummed in the corner, making the garage genuinely warm for once. "We're closed," she called out as always. "It's me." The creeper rolled out. Sophia sat up, pushing hair from her face. She looked utterly exhausted, beautiful and exhausted. "Lorenzo, what are you doing here?" "Saw the lights, wanted to make sure everything was okay." "It's midnight. You always check on people at midnight when necessary." She studied him for a moment before standing, stretching her back. "I'm behind on a commercial job. Fleet vehicles for a delivery company, good money, but the deadline's tight. You should hire someone." "With what? I'm still trying to build up savings." She grabbed a water bottle and took a long drink. "Besides, I like working alone. No one to disappoint but myself." Lorenzo leaned against the workbench, observing her. Over the past few weeks, he had come to understand her rhythms, the way she chewed her lip when concentrating, the faint hum she emitted when a repair went smoothly, the fact that she subsisted on terrible coffee and sheer stubbornness. "Eli asked about you yesterday," Sophia said, without looking at him. "Wanted to know when you're coming back to teach him more about engines. I can come by this weekend." "You don't have to. I know you're busy with whatever it is you do." There it was, the unspoken question veiled in her statement. "I have time," Lorenzo replied. Sophia set down the water bottle and met his gaze directly. "Do you? Because I've been watching you, Lorenzo. The way you move, the way you talk, even the way you stand." She crossed her arms. "You move like someone who's used to giving orders, like the world rearranges itself around you." Lorenzo maintained a neutral expression. "That's quite an observation." "I notice things. Comes with the job. Reading what's wrong with an engine, you start reading what's wrong with people too." She stepped closer. "So, what's wrong with you?" "Nothing's wrong with me. Everyone has something wrong with them. You've got guards watching my shop. You replace thousands of dollars in equipment overnight. You show up at midnight to check on things." She tilted her head. "What are you running from, Lorenzo?" The question hung in the air between them. Outside, snow had begun to fall again, soft flakes illuminated by the security lights. He could lie, should lie, maintain his defenses, keep his distance, protect the secret that was slowly consuming him from within. But looking at Sophia, this woman who had survived losing everything and somehow remained honest, Lorenzo found himself weary of pretense. "A fire," he said quietly. "I started a long time ago." Sophia's eyes narrowed. "A literal fire?" "A metaphorical one, though." He paused. "It was real enough." "And you're still burning." She remained silent for a long moment, the only sounds the heater and the distant hum of the highway. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "After Daniel died, I used to dream about fire, smell smoke that wasn't there, wake up choking on nothing." She looked at her hands, at the grease permanently stained in the creases. "The therapist said it was trauma, that my brain was trying to process what happened. But it felt like punishment, you know, like I should have been there, should have saved him somehow." Lorenzo's throat constricted. "You couldn't have saved him." "I know, logically I know, but logic doesn't help at 3 a.m. when you're alone in bed and your kid's crying for his daddy." She met his eyes. "So, whatever fire you started, Whatever you're running from, I get it. Some things chase you forever. If only she knew. If only she understood that the fire she dreamed of, the smoke she couldn't escape, the husband she couldn't save, all of it led back to the man standing before her. Does it get easier? Lorenzo asked. The guilt. You tell me. You're the one still running. I'm not running. I'm just... What? Hiding? That's the same thing. Sophia moved closer, and Lorenzo caught the scent of motor oil mixed with something floral, perhaps her shampoo. Here's what I think. I think you're a powerful man who did something he regrets. I think whatever business you're in, it's cost you. And I think you're here in my garage at midnight because it's the only place you feel clean. She was dangerously close to the truth. Maybe, Lorenzo admitted. So what did you do? Kill someone? The directness of it stunned him. She was joking, yet not, testing the waters, gauging his reaction. Would it matter if I had? He asked carefully. Sophia considered this. I don't know. Would you do it again? The question carried immense weight. Would he? If he could rewind 9 years, with his current knowledge, would he still issue that command? Would he still prioritize his empire over an innocent man? No, Lorenzo said, realizing he meant it. I wouldn't. Then maybe you're not as bad as you think you are. You don't know what I've done. You're right. I don't, she countered, her gaze unwavering as it met his. And perhaps I don't wish to, because whoever you were before, whoever you were out there, she gestured vaguely toward the sprawling city beyond. In here, you're solely Lorenzo, the man who mended my heating, taught my son about engines, and appeared at my doorstep at midnight, genuinely concerned about my well-being. Sophia, I'm not foolish. She swiftly cut him off. I am well aware you're a dangerous individual. I know you're entangled in matters I likely wouldn't want to comprehend. However, I also know you haven't harmed me. You haven't harmed Eli. You've only ever offered help, even when I resisted it. Lorenzo yearned to tell her she was mistaken, longed to confess everything, to bring down all pretense, and face her inevitable fury and hatred, for he believed he deserved nothing less. Yet, the way she regarded him, with something akin to trust, perhaps even affection, silenced him. The fire you ignited, Sophia murmured softly. Can you extinguish it? I'm not sure it works that way. Everything eventually burns itself out, even the most intense conflagrations. She briefly touched his arm. Perhaps you merely need to cease adding fuel to it. Her hand withdrew, but Lorenzo could still feel the lingering warmth of her touch. Such a simple gesture, yet it permeated a moment of profound complexity. I should allow you to work, he stated, stepping back slightly. Or you could stay, she offered, a small, weary smile gracing her lips. Hand me tools, keep me company. The nights are long when you labor alone. Lorenzo knew he ought to depart, understood that every passing moment spent here compounded the lie, deepening the betrayal. What do you require? He inquired instead. Sophia's smile broadened a fraction. A 3/4-inch socket wrench. For the subsequent 2 hours, Lorenzo Vitali, kingpin, killer, architect of empires, stood in a garage at midnight, passing tools to the widow of the man he had murdered, pretending to be someone worthy of her respect. The newspaper landed on Lorenzo's desk at 6 o'clock in the morning, slammed down by Marco with enough force to make his coffee cup rattle. Mafia boss's mechanic, the headline screamed. Local garage tied to Vitali crime family. Lorenzo's blood ran cold. The article contained every incriminating detail. Photographs of his Mercedes parked conspicuously outside Carter's auto repair, rampant speculation about money laundering, and quotes from anonymous sources alleging Sophia Carter was Lorenzo Vitali's mistress, her garage a mere front for illicit operations, and her name, her full name, Eli's name, their address, everything laid bare. How? Lorenzo's voice was dangerously quiet. Someone on the inside, Marco responded. It had to be. Only our inner circle knew about the protection detail. Lorenzo's hands clenched around the newspaper. Find out who. Already working on it, Marco assured him. By noon, the damage was irreversible. 3 news vans had descended upon Sophia's garage. Police officers arrived, asking pointed questions about business licenses and tax records, suddenly displaying an interest in a shop they had ignored for 9 years. and the customers, Sophia's few regulars, simply stopped coming. Lorenzo observed the unfolding chaos on the television in his office, watching Sophia attempting to work while reporters shouted questions through the makeshift barriers erected by his men. She appeared utterly exhausted, trapped, and incandescently furious. His phone rang. "Sophia, what have you done?" Her voice quivered with raw rage. "They're claiming I'm running drugs, that I'm your—" She couldn't even bring herself to utter the word. "The police search my garage, Lorenzo. They search my home with my son present. Do you comprehend? They ransacked Eli's room, searching for evidence of crimes I have never committed." "Sophia, I'm handling this," Lorenzo interjected. "Handling it?" she scoffed. "You brought this to my doorstep. You, your protection, and your secrets. Reporters are calling my son's school. My customers now perceive me as a criminal. The bank called regarding my business loan. Apparently I'm a reputation risk now." Lorenzo closed his eyes. "I will fix this." "You can't fix this," she retorted, her voice breaking. "You can't simply throw money at it or have your men scare it away. My name is in the paper, Lorenzo, my son's name. Everyone knows now." "I am sorry," he managed to say. "Sorry doesn't rebuild my reputation. Sorry doesn't bring my customers back." Her voice cracked further. "I survived losing Daniel. I survived starting over with nothing. But this, I don't know if I can survive this." She abruptly hung up. Lorenzo stood there, phone still in hand, feeling the empire he had painstakingly built crumble around something that truly mattered. "Boss," Marco appeared in the doorway. "Found him. Paulie Greco. He's been talking to reporters for a week, getting paid for information." "Where is he?" Lorenzo demanded. "Warehouse on the docks. Your orders?" Lorenzo grabbed his coat. "I'll handle this myself." Paulie Greco, 43 years old, a captain who had served Lorenzo for a decade, was known for his reliability and loyalty, or so Lorenzo had believed. He was now bound to a chair in the desolate warehouse, flanked by two of Marco's burliest men. As Lorenzo entered, Paulie's expression shifted from palpable fear to an almost defiant sneer. "About time you showed up," Paulie spat. "What? Too busy coddling your girlfriend?" Lorenzo halted 5 feet away. "Why?" "Why?" Paulie scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping him. "You're seriously asking me why? You've lost your mind, Lorenzo. The entire organization sees it. Running around protecting some nobodies, a mechanic, no less, pulling men off crucial assignments, igniting wars with the Russians over what? A woman? That's not your concern," Lorenzo stated flatly. "It becomes everyone's concern when the boss loses focus." Paulie spat a blob of blood onto the concrete floor. "You've gone soft, weak, so, yes, I made some calls. I figured if I couldn't reason with you, perhaps public exposure would. You endangered a civilian." "She's not a civilian any longer," Lorenzo countered. "You made her part of this the moment you started protecting her." Paulie leaned forward as much as his restraints allowed. "You want to know what I truly think? I believe you're compensating for something. Guilt, perhaps. Which makes me wonder, what precisely does Lorenzo Vitali have to feel guilty about?" Lorenzo's jaw tightened perceptibly. "Careful." "I did some digging," Paulie continued, his eyes gleaming with malicious intent. "Called in some favors, checked old files. The warehouse fire, March 2016. You recall that one, boss? The cover-up job. I found the report, the real one, about the security guard who died." The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. Paulie smiled, a cruel and knowing curve of his lips. "Daniel Carter, Sophia's late husband. That's what this is truly about, isn't it? You're not protecting some random woman. You're protecting the wife of the man you killed." The ensuing silence was deafening. Lorenzo heard Marco's sharp intake of breath behind him. "That's insane," Marco uttered, though his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Paulie challenged, fixing his gaze on Lorenzo. "Tell him, boss. Tell him I'm wrong. Tell him you didn't order that hit. That you didn't approve of killing her husband." Lorenzo remained silent, utterly unable to speak. The devastating truth stood between them, a tangible third presence. "Your silence speaks volumes!" Paulie burst into hollow laughter. "Oh, this is simply perfect. Lorenzo Vitali, the ice-cold killer, unraveling over guilt. You're protecting her because you utterly destroyed her. You're playing father to her child because you made him an orphan. Does she know? Does she have any inkling she's been repairing cars for her husband's murderer? Enough, Lorenzo said quietly, his voice strained. You can kill me, Polly taunted, but it won't alter what you did. It won't make you clean, and sooner or later she will find out. The truth always does. Lorenzo looked at the man who had served him faithfully for 10 years, who had followed orders, kept secrets, and killed when commanded, and who had just, irrevocably, signed his own death warrant. Yet, Lorenzo found he couldn't give the order. He couldn't add another body to the ever-growing pile. Not anymore. Let him go, Lorenzo commanded. Marco stepped forward, aghast. Boss, he's a traitor. Let him go, Lorenzo repeated, his voice firm. Out of the city, out of the state. If I ever see him again, the deal is off. Polly looked genuinely shocked. You're letting me live? I'm letting you leave, Lorenzo corrected. There's a substantial difference. He turned to Marco. Ensure he understands that it's permanent. As Marco's men began to untie Polly, Lorenzo walked towards the warehouse windows, gazing out at the dreary gray Chicago sky. She's going to find out, Polly yelled after him. You can't conceal this forever. Lorenzo did not turn around. I know, he murmured. He heard them drag Polly out, heard the deafening slam of the warehouse door. Then Marco's footsteps approached. Is it true? Marco asked quietly. About her husband? Lorenzo pressed his forehead against the cold glass. Yes. Jesus, Lorenzo. I didn't know who he was, Lorenzo confessed, his voice barely a whisper. Didn't know about her, about the kid. He was just a name on a report, collateral damage. And now he's everything. Lorenzo's voice cracked with raw emotion. He's the man I took from the woman I... He stopped, unable to complete the sentence. What are you going to do? Marco inquired. Lorenzo thought of Sophia's voice on the phone, the raw pain in her tone. He thought of Eli's infectious smile as they worked on engines together. He thought of the life he had so carelessly destroyed, and the intricate web of lies he had constructed in a desperate attempt to patch it all up. I'm going to tell her, he finally said, his resolve hardening. The truth, all of it. She'll hate you. She should. It'll obliterate whatever this is between you. It already is obliterated, Lorenzo replied, his voice heavy with resignation. I just haven't admitted it yet. He straightened up, catching his reflection in the glass, the same face that had ordered dozens of deaths, the same man who had built an empire on violence and fear. But somewhere within the past few weeks, something had irrevocably shifted. He had begun to yearn for something better than what he was, to desire redemption more profoundly than power, and redemption, he had learned, demanded truth, no matter the excruciating cost. Lorenzo waited until evening after the news vans had finally departed and the garage was enveloped in a fragile quiet. His hands trembled as he parked his Mercedes, the very car Sophia had repaired that first night, a lifetime ago. A lie ago. She was inside, methodically sweeping up shards of broken glass from a window someone had hurled a brick through. Her movements were mechanical, utterly exhausted. When she heard the door creak open, she didn't even bother to look up. We're closed, she stated flatly, her voice devoid of emotion. Sophia, we need to talk, Lorenzo began. There's nothing left to discuss, she insisted, continuing her sweeping. You've done quite enough. Please, just give me 5 minutes. She finally looked at him, and the chilling emptiness in her eyes was far more devastating than any anger could have been. What could you possibly say that would make any of this even remotely better? Nothing, Lorenzo admitted, his voice raw with unspoken pain. I can't make it better, but you deserve the truth. I already know the truth, she retorted. You're a criminal who dragged his world into mine and utterly destroyed everything I painstakingly built. She flung the broom aside with a clatter. My business is ruined, Lorenzo. The bank called. They're pulling my loan. I might lose this entire place. The truth you cling to is now irrelevant. We need to discuss Daniel. Sophia froze, her voice a hushed query. Daniel? With a deliberate motion, Lorenzo produced the file he had guarded for weeks, a dossier compiling 9 years of evidence and culpability. He placed it squarely on the workbench between them. The Warehouse Fire March, 2016. It wasn't accidental. Sophia's face blanched. What are you saying? It was arson, Lorenzo confirmed, ordered and orchestrated to eliminate incriminating evidence. Your husband, Daniel, was working security that night. He witnessed too much. Wrong place, wrong time. Sophia's head shook vehemently. No, the fire marshal stated otherwise. The fire marshal was bribed to lie, Lorenzo countered, his voice cracking. The reports were falsified. The insurance claim was deliberately delayed and contested by lawyers. Working for her. His gaze held hers. Working for me? Sophia's words were a barely audible whisper, hanging in the air like an acrid plume of smoke. She stared, her mouth agape, but no sound emerged. Then, with trembling hands, she seized the file. Inside lay police reports, the authentic fire marshal's findings, photographs, and, at the very bottom, a document bearing Lorenzo's unmistakable handwriting and initials. Approved, Delve. No, she gasped. This isn't... You didn't... I gave the order, Lorenzo admitted, the words feeling like a brutal incision into his own conscience. I didn't know his name then. I didn't know about you or Eli. He was simply collateral damage, a problem to be eradicated. Sophia recoiled, dropping the file as if it had burned her. Papers scattered across the concrete floor, 9 years of deception spilling out. You killed my husband, she choked, her voice a barely audible tremor. Yes, you killed Daniel. Her tone gained strength, the horrifying reality settling in. Yes, and then you came here, to my garage. You looked me in the eye. Her breath hitched in short, ragged gasps. You met my son. You taught him about engines. You stood in my house at Christmas. Her voice trailed off, the magnitude of the betrayal too immense for articulation. I didn't plan it, Lorenzo offered, hating the feebleness of his own words. That first night, the car trouble, finding your garage, that was an accident. When I saw your name, when you told me about the fire, I realized what I had done, who you were. And you said nothing, Sophia cried, her voice rising in anguish. You stood there and listened to me, talk about my dead husband, your victim, and you said nothing. I know. You let me cry about him. You watched me struggle. Her voice shattered completely. You came to my home. You played with my son. You made him trust you, made him love you. And all this time, you were... She couldn't utter the words. The monster, the murderer, the man who had obliterated her entire world. Sophia, I am sorry. She snatched a wrench from the bench and hurled it at him. It clanged harmlessly against the wall. You think sorry fixes this? You think sorry brings Daniel back? Gives Eli his father? Tears streamed uncontrollably, huge, racking sobs shaking her whole body. Lorenzo stood his ground, absorbing every tear, every wave of fury, acknowledging his deserving of it all. I had to save for 2 years to afford his funeral, Sophia recounted through her sobs. 2 years of working 3 jobs while caring for a baby. And your lawyers? Your lawyers, she spat. They fought me on the insurance, made me prove Daniel's death mattered, made me beg for $30,000 while you... She gestured around at the expensive equipment, the symbols of his guilt-ridden generosity. While you sat in your penthouse, counting millions. I know I can't fix what I did. Then why are you here? She shrieked. Why? Tell me now. You came here for forgiveness, for absolution? No. Lorenzo's voice was remarkably steady, even as his insides felt shattered. I came here to stop lying. You came here to make yourself feel better, to clear your conscience. Sophia grabbed another tool, then another, flinging them. Lorenzo remained motionless as wrenches and sockets rained around him. You took everything from me, my husband, my future, my son's father. 9 years I've been drowning, and you were the anchor around my neck the whole time. She collapsed against the workbench, her body racked with sobs, unable to breathe. Lorenzo yearned to go to her, to offer comfort, but he knew he had no right, not anymore, not ever. I loved him, Sophia choked out. He was good and kind, and he worked so hard for us. And you just... She looked up at Lorenzo, her eyes blazing with pure hatred. Get out, Sophia! Get out! She screamed until her voice was raw. Get out of my garage! Get away from my son! I never want to see you again. Lorenzo, his hands numb, picked up the scattered file from the floor. There's one more thing in there. Documentation of everyone involved in the cover-up. My men who profited from Daniel's death. My lawyers who delayed your claim. Names, dates, evidence. He placed it back on the workbench. Do with it what you want. Turn it over to the police. Burn it. It's yours. You think that makes this right? No, nothing makes this right. Lorenzo walked towards the door, then paused. For what it's worth, and I know it's worth nothing, I'm sorry. Not for getting caught, not for the consequences. I'm sorry because you deserved better. Daniel deserved better. Eli deserved a father. You're sorry? Sophia's laugh was broken, bitter. You get to be sorry. You get to walk away feeling like you did the right thing by confessing. And I get to live with this. I get to look at my son and know the man who made him fatherless is the same man he called a friend. Lorenzo had no reply. There was no answer. I'll ensure my men leave. You won't see me again. That's not good enough. I know, but it's all I can give you. He opened the door, a gust of snow from the December night blowing in. Not pity, Sophia. Justice. I'm turning myself in. Everything I built. Everyone who helped me. I'm bringing it all down. It won't bring Daniel back. But maybe it's something. He left before she could respond, leaving her amidst the wreckage of truth, surrounded by tools, shattered trust, and 9 years of finally exposed lies. As he walked to his car, her scream pierced the night, a sound of pure anguish that would forever haunt him. He had finally told the truth, and it had obliterated everything. Lorenzo did not return home that night. He went to his office and began making calls. The first was to Agent Sarah Chen at the FBI's Chicago field office. They had circled each other for years, she trying to build a case, he always just out of reach. Agent Chen, it's Lorenzo Vitali. I'd like to make a deal. A long pause ensued. Is this a joke? I have documentation on every operation I've run for the past 15 years. Money laundering, racketeering, bribery, murder for hire, names, dates, bank accounts, recordings, everything you've been trying to get for a decade. What do you want in return? Nothing, just take it. He gazed at the files spread across his desk, his entire empire laid bare in paper and digital form. I'll be at your office at 9 a.m. Come alone or bring an army, I don't care. He hung up before she could reply. The second call was to his lawyer. Draw up immunity agreements for Marco and anyone who wasn't involved in the 2016 warehouse fire. Everyone else goes down with me. Lorenzo, what are you? Just do it. You have until morning. Third call. Marco, get everyone together, meeting at the warehouse, 2 hours. Boss, it's midnight now. Marco. 40 men showed up. Captains, soldiers, associates. The entire structure of Lorenzo's organization crowded into the same warehouse where he had confronted Paulie days earlier. They looked confused, wary. Lorenzo rarely called meetings like this. He stood before them, unguarded, unarmed, just a man and the damning truth he was about to deliver. For 15 years, I've built this organization on loyalty, fear, and profit, Lorenzo began. I've asked you to do things, illegal things, violent things, and you've done them without question. In return, I've made you rich, made you powerful, made you untouchable. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. That ends tonight. The murmurs died. I'm turning myself into the FBI. I'm giving them everything. Financial records, operation details, names. Lorenzo met each man's gaze. But I'm giving some of you a choice. Anyone not involved in the March 2016 warehouse fire operation gets immunity. Marco's already drawn up the papers. You walk away clean. Keep your money, start over. You've lost your mind, someone yelled from the back. Probably, Lorenzo conceded, but I'm doing it anyway. Why? This came from Tony Battaglia, a captain who had been with him from the beginning. We're making money. The cops can't touch us. Why burn it all down? Because I killed an innocent man. And I've spent 9 years pretending it didn't matter. The warehouse fell silent. Daniel Carter, security guard. Wrong place, wrong time. I gave the order to burn that warehouse knowing he was inside. Lorenzo's voice remained steady. His widow, his son. They've been living with that loss while I got richer off the same operation that killed him. So, yeah, I'm burning it down, because it should burn. One dead civilian? Frankie Russo scoffed in disbelief. That's what this is about, boss. We've all got bodies. That's the business. Maybe it shouldn't be. You're really going to ruin us over guilt? Tony stepped forward. Over some nobody? He wasn't a nobody. He was a father, a husband, a man trying to make an honest living who died because I needed evidence destroyed. Lorenzo pulled out a stack of documents. These are the immunity agreements. Anyone who wants out, sign one. Be at the FBI office by 10 a.m. You'll be free. And if we don't, Frankie asked, then you go down with the rest of us. Your choice. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Marco stepped forward, took a document, and signed it. I'm out, he said quietly. 15 years, Lorenzo. We were brothers, but I can't follow you into this. One by one, others came forward. Young men who had only been with him for a few years. Old-timers who were tired of running. Within 20 minutes, 32 men had signed immunity deals. 8 remained, the ones who had been there that night in 2016. The ones who had helped pour the gasoline, strike the match, cover it up. Lorenzo looked at them. I'm not asking you to turn yourselves in, but I'm not protecting you anymore either. When the FBI arrives, I'm handing them everything. You've got roughly 12 hours to flee. You're a dead man, Frankie declared. You realize that, right? Someone's going to put a bullet in you for this. Probably, came the reply, but at least I'll die human instead of whatever I've been. They dispersed in silence. Some sprinted away, others accepted their fate. Lorenzo watched his dominion dissipate like smoke, feeling lighter with each defector. By dawn, he was the sole occupant of the warehouse. Marco, the last to depart, had gripped Lorenzo's shoulder once before vanishing into the Chicago morning. You're doing the right thing, Marco had said, even if it kills you. Now, Lorenzo perched on a crate, enveloped by the echoes of 15 years steeped in brutality and avarice. His phone incessantly vibrated, with associates calling, partners demanding explanations, and adversaries sensing weakness. He ignored every single one. At 8:45 a.m., he drove to the FBI field office. News crews were already assembling, evidently tipped off. Lorenzo navigated through the cameras and the yelling reporters, carrying 3 evidence boxes. Agent Chin met him at the entrance, flanked by a dozen armed agents. She gazed at him with an expression of disbelief. Lorenzo Vitali, are you truly doing this? I truly am. Why? He recollected Sophia's expression when she grasped the truth. He remembered Eli's grin as they tinkered with engines together. He thought of Daniel Carter, the man whose life he had extinguished without a second thought. Because I immolated a good man's life, Lorenzo stated, it seemed only fair to immolate my own. They took him into custody without resistance. As the handcuffs clicked shut, Lorenzo experienced a sensation he hadn't known in decades. Peace. His empire had crumbled. His reputation was in ruins. His men scattered. Everything he had meticulously constructed over 15 years had disintegrated in a single night, and for the first time since he had issued that order 9 years prior, Lorenzo Vitali could breathe. The burden was finally lifted. The falsehoods, the guilt, the blood money, all of it vanished when he ceased running from his actions. He was now powerless, broken, headed for prison or worse. Yet, in the back of that FBI sedan, hands cuffed, future shattered, Lorenzo felt more human than he had in years. Perhaps redemption wasn't about repairing what you had broken. Perhaps it was simply about halting the destruction, acknowledging the damage, and confronting the ramifications. As they drove through Chicago, Lorenzo observed the city he had covertly controlled. It would continue without him. The empire would be carved up by rivals. His name would become a cautionary tale. And somewhere in a modest garage outside the city, a widow and her son would reconstruct their lives, free from his shadow. It wasn't enough. It could never be enough. But it was something. And for a man who had spent 15 years building an empire on nothing, something felt like everything. 6 weeks later, on a somber February afternoon, Lorenzo Vitali stood outside Carter's auto repair for one last time. The FBI had granted him 48 hours before sentencing. His lawyer estimated a minimum of 20 years, more likely 30. At 52 years old, Lorenzo would die in prison. That seemed appropriate. The garage appeared different, improved. The sign had been repainted. New customer cars now filled the lot. Word had spread that Sophia had played a role in bringing down the Vitali organization, and suddenly everyone wanted to support her. It turned out that being the woman who defied the mob was good for business. Lorenzo almost managed a smile at the irony. He had destroyed her reputation, and in destroying his own, he had, in a strange twist, restored hers. He waited until closing time, watching the last customer drive away. Then he approached the door. Sophia was wiping down the workbench, her back to him. She stiffened upon hearing his footsteps but didn't turn. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "I know. I just came to—" He paused. "What? Say goodbye? Ask forgiveness again? I wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm not." She finally turned to face him. She looked thinner, older. The weight of the truth had etched new lines around her eyes. "But I'm surviving. That's what I do." Lorenzo nodded. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. "Eli?" he asked, angry, confused. "His therapist says it'll take time." Sophia's voice cracked slightly. "He asked if you were truly the bad man everyone says you are. I didn't know how to answer that." "What did you tell him?" "The truth. That people are complicated, that you did terrible things, but you also—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "That you tried to make it right in the end, even though you couldn't." Lorenzo felt his throat tighten. "That's more generous than I deserve." "It's not generous. It's just true." Sophia leaned against the workbench. "The FBI agent Chin, she told me everything you gave them. 15 years of evidence, your entire organization. She said most of it will never see trial because the cases are so airtight. People are just pleading out. Good. She also said you refused any deals. No reduced sentence, no witness protection, nothing. Just straight to prison." "That's what I deserve." Sophia studied him for a long moment. "You look different. Lighter, somehow. I don't carry as much anymore." "Good." She picked up a rag, twisting it in her hands. "I read Daniel's file, the real one, saw what they did to him, how they covered it up for 9 years. I thought it was just bad luck, random tragedy." Her eyes met his. "Knowing the truth is worse, but also better. Does that make sense?" "Yeah, it does. I get to be angry now, get to direct it somewhere instead of just screaming into the void." Lorenzo pulled an envelope from his coat pocket, placing it on the workbench. "That's the deed to this property. It's in Eli's name, in a trust, paid off completely. No liens, no strings. It's yours." "Really? Mine?" Sophia looked at it as if it might detonate. "Lorenzo, it's not guilt money this time. It's Daniel's. What he should have left you. What you should have had all along." He stepped back toward the door. "The trust is managed by an independent firm. I have no access, no control. You'll never hear from me again after today." "Where are you going after sentencing?" "Federal prison. Maximum security, probably. I made a lot of enemies who will be happy to see me locked up with no protection." "You think you'll survive it?" Lorenzo shrugged. "Honestly, I don't know. Maybe not. But I'm done running from consequences." Sophia walked to the door where he stood, stopping a few feet away. For the first time since the confession, she truly looked at him, not with hatred, but with something more complex, something akin to understanding. "I can't forgive you," she said. "I don't think I ever will. What you did to Daniel, to me, to Eli, that doesn't go away. I know, but I also can't hate you anymore. I'm too tired for hate." She wrapped her arms around herself. "You destroyed my life, and then you destroyed yours, trying to make it right. I don't know what to do with that. You don't have to do anything with it. Just live, be happy. Give Eli the life Daniel wanted for him." Snow had begun to fall outside, soft flakes drifting past the security lights. Lorenzo pulled out his car keys, the same Mercedes from that first night, and placed them on the counter next to the envelope. "The car's fine," Sophia said quietly. "I know. It's me that's broken." She looked at him steadily, and in her eyes he saw something that almost resembled compassion. Almost, but not quite. "You can't fix the past with bullets, Lorenzo," she said, "or with money, or even with prison. You can only be better than it." "I'm trying. I know you are." She picked up the keys, holding them out to him. "The car is still yours for the next 48 hours anyway. Drive safe." Lorenzo took the keys, their fingers momentarily touching. "Thank you for everything, for being decent when I deserve nothing, for being stronger than anyone should have to be." "Don't thank me. Just go." He nodded, turning toward the door. His hand was on the handle when Sophia spoke again. Lorenzo. He looked back. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. In there, in prison, in whatever time you have left. Her voice was soft, sad. I hope you find peace. I already have, he said. That's why I can go. He walked out into the falling snow, got into the Mercedes one last time. In the rearview mirror, he watched Sophia standing in the doorway of her garage, her husband's dream, her hard-won life, her future finally free of his shadow. She raised one hand in a gesture that wasn't quite a wave, more like acknowledgement, closure. Lorenzo drove away slowly, watching her vanish into the distance. The city lights of Chicago glowed ahead, and beyond them, his reckoning. Prison. Consequences. The end of Lorenzo Vitali, the criminal. But maybe, just maybe, the beginning of Lorenzo Vitali, the man. He had spent 15 years building an empire on blood and lies. And in the end, the only thing worth anything was the truth that had destroyed it all. The snow fell heavier, covering his tracks, washing the world clean. And for the first time in years, Lorenzo Vitali drove into an uncertain future and felt something close to hope. Not redemption, that was too much to ask for, but maybe a chance to die as something better than what he lived as. It would have to be enough,